You know that picture of the biblical tabernacle? The one you've seen in books and Bible studies your whole life? We all have this one universally accepted image of it. But what if I told you that blueprint, the one we've all taken for granted, has a fundamental mistake hidden right in plain sight? That's exactly what we're going to dig into. So this is probably the layout you're familiar with, right? You walk into the first room, the holy place. You've got the table of showbread, the lampstand, and then right before that big curtain, the golden altar of incense. And behind that curtain, that's the most holy place, with just the Ark of the Covenant inside. It all seems pretty clear-cut, except for one little passage in the New Testament that just throws a wrench in the whole thing. And there it is, the book of Hebrews stating as clearly as you can that the golden altar of incense was behind the second curtain. It's inside the most holy place right there with the Ark of the Covenant. Now, this isn't some tiny, insignificant detail. It's a direct contradiction to 2,000 years of tradition. So, which is it? Is the altar in the first room or the second? So here's our puzzle. On one side, you have the tradition, based on our reading of Exodus, that puts the altar in the first room. On the other side, you have Hebrews, putting it squarely in the second room. Look, somebody's got it wrong. And to figure this out, we can't just stick with the translations. We have to go back to the original language. You see, the solution to this ancient mystery isn't really about debating different traditions. It's actually hidden in a really subtle but absolutely crucial distinction in the original Hebrew text of Exodus itself, a detail that, you'll see, gets lost in translation. All right, our first keyword is panim. Now, it literally means face, but it's not just about a physical location. It's about relationship, it's about proximity. To be panim is to be face-to-face, to be in the direct presence of someone. It implies this intimate connection. And this distinction, well, it's everything. And our second word is chutz. Now, this one is way more straightforward. It just means outside. Simple. It describes your location relative to some kind of boundary. If you are chutz, you are on the exterior of something. There's no real ambiguity there at all. Okay, now here is where it all clicks. The Bible uses these two very different words incredibly deliberately. When it talks about the table and the lampstand, the text uses huts. They are placed outside the curtain. No question, that's the first room. But for the golden altar, the text switches. It doesn't use huts, it uses panim. It says the altar is to be placed face-to-face with the mercy seat, which, as we know, is on top of the Ark of the Covenant, inside the most holy place. This one linguistic clue is the key that unlocks the entire puzzle. Once you see this distinction, you can actually redraw the tabernacle's blueprint to reflect what the original Hebrew was saying all along. So, think about what this means. The author of Hebrews wasn't mistaken at all. They were just reading the Hebrew correctly. The golden altar was always intended to be inside the most holy place, in the direct panim, the presence of God. This 2,000-year-old error seems to come from a simple mistranslation, treating the relational word panim as if it were the simple locational word chutz. But this isn't just about rearranging sacred furniture. The reason why it's there is even more profound. So why does moving one piece of furniture change everything? Because the golden altar was the only place inside where incense was offered, and the source of the fire used on that altar, well, it was a literal matter of life and death. The process for this was incredibly specific. You see, the fire for worship couldn't just come from anywhere. It couldn't be man-made. According to the text, it had to come directly from God. It first appeared on the big altar outside, and only coals from that divine fire could be carried inside to light the incense on the golden altar. This was God's fire, the true fire. And if you want to know how serious this was, there's a really sobering story in Leviticus. Two priests, Nadab and Abihu, decided to do their own thing. They offered incense using their own strange fire, a fire that wasn't from God's altar. They brought a man-made fire into God's presence, and the result was instant judgment. The principle was crystal clear. Worship in God's immediate presence had to be initiated by God himself, not by human effort. Now, this ancient principle of a divine fire, something required for worship in the most holy place, doesn't just end in the Old Testament. In fact, it's pointing forward to one of the most climactic moments in the entire New Testament. When Jesus died on the cross, the Gospels tell us that the huge, thick veil separating the holy place from the most holy place was torn in two, from top to bottom. That barrier into God's immediate presence, the very room where the golden altar truly stood, was ripped away. Access was now wide open. So just think for a second about what that fire represented. It was the fire of God's own presence. It was the symbol of worship started by God himself, and it was carefully contained inside that one sacred hidden room, the true location of the golden altar. And then came Pentecost. The true fire, which was once confined to that one spot in the most holy place, burst out. It appeared as tongues of fire that rested on every single believer. That very same principle, worship empowered not by us, but by God's own Spirit, was no longer limited to one location. It was made available to everyone. The fire of the golden altar had gone public. So a single word choice, one tiny linguistic detail, and our entire picture of the tabernacle changes. It unlocks this incredible theological thread that runs all the way from Exodus to Pentecost. It really makes you stop and wonder, doesn't it? If a picture we've accepted as fact for 2,000 years could be wrong, what other truths are just waiting there for us to rediscover when we go back to the source?